Summer Fun with Acey and Christi. Chapter 2. A Backyard Adventure. The Bible says in Proverbs chapter 15 verse 3, "The eyes of the Lord are in every place, beholding the evil and the good." "Hi girls," said Mrs. Lovejoy as Sandy, Becky and Christi came skipping into the kitchen. Sandy and Becky were visiting with their friend Christi while their parents were on a business trip to Terra City. "You've been playing out there in the backyard for quite a while. How about some juice and a little snack?" "Yes, please," they all cried, clapping their hands in glee. As Mother was getting the snack and juice, she asked, "What have you been doing? You certainly seemed busy out there." "Well, we played on the swing set for a little while," answered Sandy. "Yes," agreed Becky, "and Christi pushed me on the swing till I went high. I almost went flying. It was fun, wasn't it, Christi?" "It was for you, Becky, but it made me tired," exclaimed Christi. "I know," continued Becky. "I wanted to swing more, but Sandy wanted to play house. Sandy always wants to play house. She always wants me to be the baby too." "Why do they always want me to be the baby?" "Well, I suppose it's because you are such a sweet little person," replied Mrs. Lovejoy. Christi and Sandy smiled at each other. They knew Mother understood. "Do you girls have the little tea set out?" asked Mother. "Would you like to take this peanut butter snack outside and have tea with your dolls?" "Oh, that would be fun," agreed the girls happily. "May we take some juice to put it in the little cups too?" "I suppose so," said Mother. "It wouldn't be much of a tea without something in the teacups now, would it?" So Mother put all the little peanut butter snacks and a small pitcher of juice on a tray and handed it to Christi. "Here you go," she said. "Have a nice tea." As Mother watched out the kitchen window, she could see the girls having a lovely tea with their dolls. Christi carefully poured the juice into little cups, and Sandy put a peanut butter snack on each little plate, even on each dolly's plate. While the girls were having tea, Mother started supper for her family. Now and then she looked out the kitchen window to check on the girls. Soon they brought the empty tray and pitcher back into the kitchen. Everything was gone, even the dolls' snacks. "Mother," said Christi, "that was really fun. We like pretending we have a home with our dolls. There is only one thing that would make it more fun." "What's that?" asked Mother. "We need a house," answered Christi. "We have dishes so we can have pretend tea parties and beds for the dolls to sleep in, but we have no house. How can we make a house? A house with a roof." "What kind of roof does your house have to have?" asked Mother. "Does it have to be a flat roof? Can it be a sloped roof?" "Oh yes," nodded the girls quickly. They agreed a sloped roof would do just fine. "Okay," said Mother. "Supper is in the oven. Now, you go back outside and move your dolls between the trees. I'll be out in just a jiffy." The girls scrambled out the door. Now their dolls would have a house with a real roof, and not just any roof. Their dolls would have a house with a sloped roof. Almost before they could get all their dolls and the doll things moved, Mother came out the kitchen door. But what was this? Mother was carrying old blankets and a long rope. "What are the blankets and rope for?" asked Christi. "We don't need beds. We need a house with a roof, a nice sloped roof." "Just wait," said Mother. "You'll see." As the girls and Mother worked together, the house began to take shape. Christi tied the rope tightly between the big trees. Then the girls held the blankets, while Mother stretched them over the rope. When the blankets had been fastened in place, the girls squealed with delight. Their house was beginning to really look like a house. Christi went into the garage and found some cord and little wooden stakes. Mother fastened the stakes to the edges of the blankets so the tent would be secure and the girls would have room inside their house. As the girls stepped back to admire their house, they could see that it was truly lovely. It had a roof, a tall pointed roof, and the roof had long sloped sides, just as Mother had promised. "It's wonderful!" exclaimed Sandy. "Thank you, Mrs. Lovejoy, for helping us." "Let's move the dolls in right away," urged Christi excitedly. "There is so much room. I can't believe we have such a wonderful house. I can even stand up inside our house." Becky, however, was looking a little puzzled, Mrs. Lovejoy noticed. "Becky, what's the matter? Don't you like your house?" "Where's the door?" Becky asked. "How can it be a house without a door?" "Your house has 2 doors," said Mrs. Lovejoy, pointing to the openings at each end. "No," Becky shook her head. "Those aren't doors. You can close doors." "Oh, I see the problem," said Mrs. Lovejoy. "How about if we do this?" Then she took 2 more blankets and hung them at each end of the girls' house. "Yes," answered Becky. "That's a door because you can open and close it." And she pulled the blanket aside and stepped inside the house. "Are you all set now?" asked Mother, looking at the girls. "Yes, yes," answered the girls. "Everything is fine now." "I'd better get back to fixing dinner then," said Mother, turning toward the kitchen. Inside their house, the girls were busily putting everything in place. They put the dolls' beds on one side and the table and tea set on the other side, and they still had room to move around and play. They were having a great time. Everything seemed perfect now. Nothing would spoil their fun. About that same time, Susie came down the street on her bike. She thought she might play with Christi. She didn't know Sandy and Becky were already visiting Christi. She dropped her bike in the middle of the walk, pranced up to the door and banged on it. As Mrs. Lovejoy opened the door and saw Susie, she smiled pleasantly and said, "Well, hello, Susie. How are you?" "Is Christi home? I came to play with her." "She's in the backyard, Susie, with Becky and Sandy. They're playing house. You may go through the gate and play with them. They have something new I know they'll want to show you." Susie dashed round to the side of the house, pushed the gate open and ran through. She was so eager to see what new thing Christi had that she didn't even shut the gate. When Susie saw the nice house that the girls had, she ran over to it and quickly pulled back the blanket door. "Say, this is really neat. I want to play, Christi. Aren't you glad I came to play?" "Yes," Christi answered. "I'm always glad when my friends come to play. You may sit here. Would you like to dress this doll? We are pretending that we are going shopping." Susie took the doll, then snapped, "I don't like this doll. I want that one." She pointed and reached for Sandy's doll. "You may have this doll," Sandy said agreeably. "Her name is Anne. I have been playing with her all day. Give me your doll and I will dress her." The girls happily continued dressing their pretend children. "Becky, give me that doll," demanded Susie, grabbing for the hat that Becky had in her hand. "I need it." "But I wanted to put it on my doll," insisted Becky. She started to pull the hat away to keep Susie from having it. Then she remembered something she had learned when they were making the house. "Okay, Susie," she said. "There are other dolls' hats. My dolly, Debbie, will look just fine in this one." And she held up a pretty little blue hat. Then Susie had an idea. "Let's have a tea party," she said. "I'm hungry, Christi. Ask your mother to fix us a snack." "We have already had a tea party," said Sandy, not waiting for Christi to answer. "Besides, Christi's mother is busy getting supper ready now." "Sandy, you're mean," shouted Susie. "Everything I want to do, you don't want to do it. Why don't you go home? Christi doesn't want to play with you anyhow." "That's not so, Susie," replied Christi quickly. "I want to play with you and Sandy. Besides, she can't go home. She is staying the night because her parents are out of town. You're welcome to play too, but we can't ask Mother to fix another snack." And with that, Susie jumped up angrily and threw down Anne. "You don't like me either, Christi. You'll be sorry you didn't want me to play." And as Susie ripped back the blanket door, she yanked one blanket off the rope and kicked meanly at the stake that was holding it. And when she did, one side of the house caved in on the girls. "There," she said, "I guess I fixed your old house." When Mother saw what was going on, she came rushing out. "What happened? Why did Susie run out of the yard? Why did she kick the stake?" "Susie got angry because we wouldn't ask you to fix another snack," she said. "And she said Sandy should go home." "I'm sorry to hear that," said Mother sadly. "We need to pray for Susie. She needs to understand God's love. You know, I was going to ask her to stay for supper." "Is Daddy home yet?" asked Christi. "I know he will want to see our fine house. Mother, will you help us fix it?" "Of course," answered Mother, "but I will need you to give me a hand." The girls helped, and sure enough, the house was ship-shape by the time Mr. Lovejoy came out the kitchen door and greeted the girls. He gave Christi a big hug. "Hello, Sandy and Becky," he said, patting each gently on the head. "Daddy, do you like our house?" asked Christi. "Isn't it nice? It has a high roof with sloped sides." "It is nice, cosy place for our dolls, but there is plenty of room for us too." I'd say it is a really fine little home," announced Mr. Lovejoy. "It reminds me a lot of a tent my brothers and I once made, only we didn't play dolls in our tent." "What did you play with in your tent?" asked Sandy with interest. "Oh, we pretended that we were on a camping trip. We pretended we were in the deep northern forest and we were hunting bears. We even decided to sleep in our tent." "Sleep out?" cried Sandy. "What a wonderful idea!" "I never thought about sleeping out," added Christi, "but it would be fun." "Well, before you make any big plans," announced Mother, "let's go in and eat supper. It's all on the table. You girls get washed up." "Yes, ma'am," they echoed each other. When the family and guests gathered around the table that night, there was much conversation and excitement. The girls told Mr. Lovejoy all about the fun they have having a tea party and how Mother helped them make their perfect house. Sandy and Christi didn't forget the idea of sleeping out either. "May we?" they asked. "I hope I won't be scared," confessed little Becky. "Well, we may have an answer for that," announced Mr. Lovejoy. "I think I could sleep on the back porch. That way you girls would know I was near." "You have somebody else to watch over you too," reminded Mother. "Yes, we did forget that for a moment, didn't we?" said Sandy. "God and Mr. Lovejoy will both watch over us." And as soon as supper was over, Christi and Sandy helped Mother clear the table and do the dishes. Then they went to get the things they would need for sleeping outside. They had their teddy bears, their Bible storybooks, their sleeping bags, and of course, a flashlight. Daddy Lovejoy helped them carry everything out to the blanket house and showed them how to fix their beds. The dolls and the tea set were moved indoors so the girls could all fit into the tent. The sun had already set, and as they were busily preparing for the night, the girls kept the flashlight burning so they could see. They did not notice that it was getting darker outside. They didn't hear Mr. Lovejoy bringing his sleeping bag out to the porch and bunk up on the porch furniture either. When Christi finally looked outside, it was very dark, and most of the lights in the house were out. "Oh," she said, "it's dark out here. I'm glad we have a flashlight." Then Sandy whispered in a rather frightened voice, "I think some animal is out there. Do you hear it?" The girls listened. Yes, they could hear it moving, and just then Patches pushed under the edge of the blanket. "Oh, Patches," Christi sighed, "you sound much bigger and fiercer in the dark." Patches just snuggled up next to Becky and began to purr. "What's that?" said a startled Becky and Christi together as they sat up suddenly. The girls listened. There it was again. Zzz. Shh, whispered Sandy. There it was again. Zzz. Oh, laughed Christi in relief. That must be Daddy snoring. The girls lay down on their beds. They had never noticed how many strange sounds there were outside at night. Some of the noises were scratching noises. Some were scraping noises. Some sounded like things flying. They were glad they had the flashlight. It helped. But the light was getting dimmer and dimmer. And just then there came a big crash, and the wind began to blow hard. Ah! They screamed. Becky, Sandy, Christi yelled, Mr. Lovejoy, come in! A storm is coming up! He ran out into the yard toward the tent. The girls were already running for the back porch, with their teddy bears and Bible storybooks in hand. Another crash of thunder and big drops of rain hurried the girls inside, just as Mr. Lovejoy followed with the blankets, sleeping bags, and flashlight. Well, so much for sleeping out tonight, said Mr. Lovejoy. Maybe another time, girls. That's okay, announced Christi. I think we'd rather sleep inside now. I know the Lord was watching over us. She snuggled close to her father. But I can feel you.